There are a lot of similarities in writing for TV and writing for film. Okay, a story is still a story. But structurally, there are some differences, and we're going to talk about those differences today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking if you're finding value, subscribing if you haven't done that. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to check out resources below, especially because we're talking about structure today. There's a resource below about the complete guide to story structure, totally free. Be sure to check that out. It's in the link below, and hopefully that will be helpful to you, and that might actually help you understand some of the things I'm going to be talking about, because I'm not delving deep into structure today. I'm just talking about the differences between TV and film structure. So hopefully this is going to be helpful to you. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in. So you like TV, you want to write for TV, but you're finding all these books and they're all about films. Now there's a few books about writing for TV that are out there, but a lot of them are just about films, and you're like, I'm having trouble separating and figuring out what do I do for TV and what's different for TV than what's different in film. So we're going to talk about 7 elements that are different in writing for TV and writing for film. Again, these are going to be structural. So if you don't understand structure, you're going to be a little lost. Be sure to check out the guide below. I'll also put a link to a video up here where I talked just in very general terms about structure. So that's up here, so you can check that out, and hopefully this will all make sense. Okay, so first we need to talk about the acts. Okay, so in film, there's typically 3 acts, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. In TV, it doesn't really work that way as far as story structure goes. Now, you will hear people talk about acts in TV, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But when we talk about the story structure, the structure of a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end, a film just has Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. TV, the pilot includes a little bit of Act 1, and then Act 2. Every episode after that is Act 2. It's just a new Act 2 over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's all it is, just regular Act 2s. If you are writing for TV, you kind of have to almost think about it as the second act of a film. Now, if you're writing for drama, this almost makes it a little easier, because in film, typically, not always, but typically, the first act is about 30 pages, the second act is about 60 pages, and the last act's about 30 pages, which gives you 120 for a 2-hour movie. A 1-hour-long drama is 60 pages, Act 2. So if you can think about it that way from a story structure point of view, that it's just Act 2, that will help you structure your TV episodes a lot better. Second, let's talk about sequences. So sequences are ways to kind of organize your story in groups of scenes. They're usually revolve around someone. They're trying to accomplish a task which they think is helping them toward their goal. And that's what a sequence is. A film typically has 8 sequences, 2 in Act 1, 4 in Act 2, and 2 in Act 3. Now remember, in TV, we're mostly concerned with Act 2. So in TV, typically there are 4 sequences. Sometimes there's 5, and it's these sequences that people refer to as acts in TV. And often they are broken if it's on broadcast. So ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, if it's broadcast, it's going to have commercial breaks. And often those commercial breaks come on the act breaks or on the sequence breaks, because you've got 60 pages, right? It's Act 2. You've got 4 sequences. So we've got some commercials. We might have something at the beginning, something at the end. So now we've got 6 things, commercial breaks. There you go. So that's where the acts come from in TV. And that's where it gets a little confusing, because people are like, well, film has 3 acts and TV has 4 to 6. Well, it doesn't. It's got 4 to 6 sequences. As far as story goes, it's just 1 act. So if you can keep that in mind with writing for TV, that's going to help you navigate it a little bit better. Third, film stories. There are a few exceptions, but they're very rare. Film stories revolve around one character. It's about someone who wants something badly, they're having trouble getting it, they get it or they don't. That's what a film is. A TV show has multiple characters, but An episode typically belongs to one of those characters. You might have an episode about this character mostly, and another episode that's about another character, and then we go back to our main character, and then another character, and then our main character, and then another character. So you can kind of jump around in TV, whereas film, it's like, no, it's about the one person trying to do the thing, and they're having trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't. In TV, it's about this one character, and they're trying to do something, they have trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't, but okay, now we're kind of being reset because it's just act 2 over and over and over again. So there are multiple characters you can choose from. So when you're writing an episode, especially if you're writing a pilot, your pilot should be about your main character. If you're writing other episodes though, or you're trying to conceptualize and think about what are some other episodes I might have, then you can start to think about what are some of the other characters who could carry an episode on their own. Number 4, in film, there is something that's just called the main tension, and there's just one, and it's what holds the second act together. Okay, so in a film, the second act is held together by this main tension. It's kind of also the want that the character is trying to do. They're trying to do this thing. That's what's going to happen. Will this character do this or not? That's the main tension. That's what's going on and what's holding it together. In TV, because each episode is a second act, each episode has its own main tension. But you have multiple episodes. So you also have main tensions that carry across seasons. You have main tensions that carry across the entire series. So you have multiple main tensions going on. You have multiple things going on. Sometimes you have a string plot. So you've got a plot that is going along and we get a little bit each episode about this one thing and it strings across 10 episodes. Okay, now we've just created an arc. That's its own tension. So once you start stacking episodes, now you have multiple tensions and multiple things going on. But within each episode, you also have one. Will the detective find the killer, right? That's a common one. And that's just a main tension for that episode. So in TV, there are multiple tensions going on, whereas film, it's just the one. 5th, let's talk about character need. So some of the things that you need your characters to have are a want, a need, and a life dream. Those are kind of some of the fundamental pieces of what a character has to have to be a successful character. And when you focus on the need in film, typically we get an answer to that at the end of the second act, and it kind of gets tested in the third act, typically. In TV, the need is never achieved. The need is simply, what does a character need to do to change? They need to become this other person. They need to become better. They need to become different. Well, in TV, you don't really do that, because if the character keeps changing, it's hard to string episodes together. So the characters typically don't learn. They might learn incrementally, and a lot of times if they do learn, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So the next episode they're stepping back. So they eventually might get there, but for the most part they're not really changing and growing over the course of the show. Now there are some exceptions, there's always exceptions, but for the most part characters don't really change. So in a TV show, the need of a character is rarely dealt with unless it's in the very last episode, okay? So, or the very last season at the earliest. So if they know a show is ending, okay, we might change some things here, but we have to see it coming. And sometimes we don't like those changes as an audience because we've fallen in love with the character as they are, and we kind of want to keep seeing them do their thing. So if you try to resolve the need in a TV show, that actually can create some problems for you. So often, just think about it, characters don't really change. They might be tempted and they should think about changing, but they really don't. Another way to think about it is if you have an episodic show. So you've got a show that's like, it's the same group of people and it's just like crime of the week. So we're solving this one, then this one, then this one. And you can watch them in any order, doesn't matter. Watch them out of order, whatever. That's why you can watch them out of order, because the character isn't changing. If the character was changing, well, now I need to watch them in order. So serialized shows, yeah, the character changes a little bit, then not, then yes, then not, then yes, then not. And eventually they kind of get there, but it's very slow. It's a very slow burn. So don't feel like you need to start having big sweeping character arcs where your characters are doing something drastically different in your TV show, because that's just not the function of a TV show. That doesn't make for a satisfying story, because if your character changes, then why do we want to keep watching them? So number 6, we talked about need. And now we're going to talk about life dream. The life dream is what the character is hoping to achieve. They want to retire to an island. They want to make $1 million. They want to solve this one case that they just could never solve. And the only time we get an answer to the life dream, if we get an answer, is in the very last episode. And sometimes we get an answer to it like, oh, they finally found the person that they were looking for, or they finally achieved the thing they've been after all along. Sometimes, though, we even get a, nope, they're never going to do it. Never going to find out who did it. Too bad, so sad. They're not going to achieve their life dream. Which that one's kind of a bummer when that happens, because it feels like we've been watching this whole series and then there's no payoff at the end. So usually you kind of want a more significant answer at the end of the series. In film, yeah, we get an answer to that often in the third act. We should get an answer to that in the third act if it's a satisfying story. But in TV, we usually don't get an answer to that until the very last episode of the series. The last difference is more about the saleability of your show, about the viability of it actually being a show, or the viability of your screenplay being a film. In film, the things that sell it are the premise. That's what really gets people excited. And often it's this like world beneath a world. There's something going on here, but we're going to find out what's really going on here. And that's an interesting premise, like, ooh, that's exciting. Let's go figure that out. That's what kind of sells a film. It's easy to market. In TV, though, it takes a little more than that, because it's not just 2 hours. That's 2 episodes. We got a whole season of 10 episodes or 15 episodes or 6 episodes. But if we have multiple seasons, it's like, 20 hours, 100 hours of storytelling, not 2. So that's a much longer term investment. Yes, I need the premise to be really good, but I also need characters. And I also need a really enticing world, a really unique world, something that is engaging and interesting. Because if the world is interesting, if the main character is interesting, and if the premise is interesting, okay, now it's a little easier to market. And that's really kind of the thing, is you have to understand people aren't just buying really good stories. They're buying good stories that they can sell. If you have a story that you're like, oh, this is really good, but the premise is kind of flat, it's not going to sell. The story may be really good, but nobody's going to buy it because they can't sell it. You have to kind of think a little bit bigger and broader about what you're wanting to write if you're wanting to sell it at some point down the road. Hopefully you're wanting to do that at some point, but I want you to understand you got to be thinking about those things from the get-go, because they're going to handicap you if you don't think about them. You've spent all this time writing this TV show, but yeah, the world's just not that interesting, so nobody's going to buy it. So, sorry. One other little tip. In dramas, so if you're writing a TV drama, an hour-long drama, the world of the show, what's going on in the world, the dynamics, that should be immediately felt in the pilot. Oh, this is a world with witches and warlocks, or oh, this is a world with aliens, or oh, this is a world where ghosts talk to people and help solve crimes, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. We should get a very clear sense of that in the pilot, in a drama. In comedy, the world builds slowly over time. So if you're writing a comedy pilot, you really want to try to give hints at what the world could be and what's possible in this world, but you don't have to fill it out totally, because that one tends to build a little slower. So comedies, the worlds of comedies build a little slower, in part because it's not as long, right? It's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So they're not as long. So it's a little harder to build a world and establish a world in a comedy. But in a drama, the world should be very prominently felt in the pilot episode. So just be aware of that when you're crafting your story. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it has, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. And whatever kind of story you're going to write, whether it's a feature film or a TV script, when you sit down to write a story and tell a story that matters. See you later.